Hi, this is Kat with Beadaholique, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make a pair of hoop earrings by wire wrapping cup chain onto flat memory wire. So what I have here is a finished earring, and this is what we're going to be making in the video. It's really nice and simple, but it's really fun. So this uses, like I was saying, the flat memory wire. So I have a couple coils here, so this is what we're going to be using to cut off that memory wire. And then for this particular design, I'm using 6 inches each for each earring of the cup chain. Now, if you wanted, you could make it a little bit shallower, or you could go possibly all the way around if you wanted to do something like that. However, if you wanted to do more, you'll need to purchase additional cup chain, and less, of course, you'll be okay. So I've already cut my 2 pieces of cup chain into 6-inch strips. So when you get your cup chain, you'll just cut it right down the middle and just make sure that your cups are even for both. All right, so I'm gonna actually set one of those pieces aside there. And I have my flat memory wire here. And this is more than enough to do both earrings, but I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna cut it because that's very important for this particular design. So as you can see, if I kind of open it up, the coils sort of match up end to end. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get at least one full loop of memory wire, which means I'm going to cut about right there. So I'm going to use my memory wire cutters, and you don't want to use regular flush cutters for this because they're just not strong enough. So I'm just going to give it a nice squeeze. There we go. And I can set my excess aside. So this is what I'm working with. Now, as you can see, if I lay it side by side here, this is definitely a much closer gap than what I'm actually going to be needing, but you're going to want that little extra slack on the end just in case your wrapping is going to be a little bit longer. So you don't want to cut it too close to what the finished ends are going to be. Also, because we're going to be using those ends to make little loops. So for my top loop, I'm going to take my round nose pliers and just place it right inside, about, I would say about a 1/2 inch or so down on the plier to get that nice rounded loop. And you're just going to bend that in towards, oops, there we go. Make sure you have a really good grip on it. This wire is very stiff. So let's try that again. So you're just going to get a nice, there we go, nice grip on it. And just sort of turn your wrist and keep going until you get it to meet up with your end there. And now I'm just going to kind of squeeze it a little bit. There we go. So that is the starting position for your memory wire. Okay, so now that we have our memory wire all set up to go, we're going to start the wire wrapping. So I'm going to be using the 26 gauge artistic wire, and we're going to start by getting our wire up close to that loop there and just sort of doing a couple wraps to anchor it before we start adding our cup chain. So what we're going to do is just lay it over across the top, and we're just going to wrap, go ahead and wrap through. And this part's a little tricky. You can leave yourself a little tail. Actually, I'm going to leave myself a little bit longer of a tail. There we go. And just wrap over once and just one more time. Okay. So let me just kind of twist this around in my hand. I'll show you what I've done here in just a second. Okay, so now I have just a couple wraps there on the top of my wire, and this is just to help get me started. So now what I'm going to do, I can leave that tail as it is. And now what I'm going to do is keep going the same way. So I'm going up over the top with my wire, and the first one is the toughest here because you're trying to set that wire in. So what you're going to do, it's a little slippery. So what you're going to do is get that wire up and over in between that first and second cup. So as you can see kind of right there, you just get the wire up and over. And because this is so tiny, what I recommend doing is trying to do 2 wraps within each cup. So let me get this started, and then I'm going to kind of show you how easy this actually is. I know it looks a little finicky, but it's just these first ones. So as you can see, I did the 3 in the front, and then I wrapped twice through that second one there. So now you just sort of keep going all the way around and just pull it through. This is also why I suggest you possibly, if you want to keep it on the spool, it's maybe a little bit easier to manage. All right, so now for that second one, you go up and over and through again. And up and over so that you have 2 wire wraps in between each cup. All right, so now just keep going here. And I'm going to do a few more, and then I'm going to kind of come back here and show you the technique a little bit easier. It's kind of difficult to get my hands out of the way, but I do want to make sure that you see this. But I'm just going in just in a clockwise direction all the way around. And you can also do this counterclockwise if you are left-handed or if that's more comfortable for you. But just make sure that you're doing 2 wraps in between each cup. I'm actually going to coil my wire up a little bit more onto my spool. I'm at the end of my spool, so it's a little more finicky than I'd like it. There we go. Okay. Yeah, see now we're cooking. Now we're getting it moving along. So you just want to just keep your wire nice and taut as you're wrapping twice in between each cup. So you can start to see that the wire disappears underneath it in the cup. So I'm going to finish, and I'm going to show you how to finish it off here when I get to the very end. Okay, so I've kind of gotten it into a nice little rhythm here, just sort of going around. And the cups are setting up really nicely for me. So I just kind of wanted to show you that once you get those first few on there, it does get much easier and much quicker. It's just kind of making sure that you have those first few wraps all set and ready to go, because you want to make sure that your alignment is correct when you have your cup chain on the memory wire. So I'm going to keep working, and I will meet you on the other side. Okay, so I'm just finishing up the last couple of cups here. And as you can already start to see that I have much more flat memory wire left than I need. So that is exactly what you're going to want. Okay, so I'm doing the second wrap on the last one there. And now I'm just going to keep going around as though there was another cup there. And I'm just going to do the same as I did on the beginning side and do a little triple wrap to sort of end that. And make sure that your wire, when you cut it, goes underneath so it doesn't poke out. So we can go ahead and clip off this wire. So I'm just going to get my flush cutters in there and trim the wire. And if you want, you can just make sure that your ends are nice and trimmed in there. There we go. And while I'm here, I'm going to also trim off this wire. Again, same thing, just making sure that it is trimmed underneath. All right, so our wire wrapping is done. The last thing we need to do is trim this wire and make that little loop. Now this loop is going to be going the opposite direction so that it sits closer to the cups. And I'll show you what I mean here in just a minute. So go ahead, and I would go about a 1/2 inch or so on the memory wire. Careful to make sure your little clip doesn't go flying. There we go. So now you have about a 1/2 inch to make that little loop. Now the same thing, I'm going to just grip it really firmly in my pliers, and now I'm going to bend it back towards the cups. So we're going in the opposite direction that we were before. And you can go ahead and kind of flip it if you want a little bit more leverage on that. And once you've curved it in, you can kind of move it down to your pliers and pinch it so that it comes nice and tight. just like so. So the final touch is that we're just going to add our earring finding here. So you can just open it up, same as you would a jump ring. Slip it on to the loop that faces inwards, the loop that we started with, and then simply just close up that loop. And again, same as you would a jump ring. So there you are. That is how to make a pair of hoop earrings using cup chain and flat memory wire. I hope you enjoyed this video. You can find more videos and many more tutorials at beadaholique.com.